21st century HR expert, and they will tell you amid the digital revolution, the most important skill to learn is the art of unlearning. It's basically about making the old habit or action extinct to pave the way for new practices more suited for the times. Our next guest is a respected figure in the field of marketing, and now he wants to promote reforms in the education system through what he calls New Bold University. Exciting term there. He wants to challenge the conventional academic calendar to offer shorter, more on-demand courses. Joining us now, Ralph Oliver Layco. Good morning, Ralph. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Mimi. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, so you opened your first business,
yes,
a salon, when you were 21 years old.
Yes,
closed
exactly.
it after a year, and now it's revived, and you have 10 branches.
10 branches.
You've also worked with a multinational, Nestle Philippines, trying to connect their business to our sari-sari stores,
Yes.
also big business in the Philippines. And at the age of 25, you actually pushed for the name of Soxargen in Central Mindanao
Yes.
to be converted to just socks.
Yes, exactly.
And now you're 30 years old, very young, just at the cusp of, doing great things. You've done so much already. Why are you suddenly interested in education? I mean, what sort of reforms do you think the education system in the Philippines badly needs?
It actually started after this many conversations with my friends who are already in their 30s or late 30s and are currently confused and they're lost because they don't know what to do with their lives because they took a certain degree. One is a nurse, but he wanted really to travel and to take a lot of photos. He cannot pursue that because he was told by his, I'll be honest here, but I'm not naming naman the name. He was persuaded by his parents to take the course because it's safe and that he can have a livelihood out of it. And for me, knowing that it's not only my friend who is going through this, but thousands more, makes me feel like we can do something about this. We can change the way education can be done and make people more alive about and passionate about what they're naturally passionate about. Because for me, I'm living my passion. Every single day, I feel like there's so much more to do.
I can feel the energy.
You can feel the energy. Yeah, and I want more people to have that kind of life. It's because I think that's the only way for you to really create a dent in the world when you actually do what you love doing.
And now what you're going to do in the education system is you're introducing a new model, and you're calling it the New Bold University.
Yes.
Is this just a fancy word for workshops?
No, not really. It really is representative of the big idea. So the idea now for New Bold is, okay, let's look at education that we have right now. We call this the conventional education, right? Where we go to school, where we prepare for employment, and we go to a 9-to-5 job. So you studied all your life, get a 9-to-5 job, and then you retire by 60. For me, that is not the only way to live. For you to change the way people live, you have to reimagine education. You cannot just tweak it, improve it incrementally. It needs to be totally reimagined because the current educational system that we have right now is actually the same educational system. If you look at if you do a Google search, 1900s, the look of the classroom is the same until now, and it's scary because that only means we're not adapting to the times. That is actually a factory model of education where everybody is trained to be factory workers, and now we're not factory workers anymore. We have abundance of education, abundance of information, and also we have exponential technology. We have the same amount of innovation during the 1900s to 2000 and 2005 to 2018, so which means almost 90 years of innovation is already now the same amount of innovation in 8 years. And now we're going to see lesser of that, and we're not changing.
When you say total overhaul of the education system,
yes,
what you want is to get rid of the conventional 4-year university requirement.
Actually,
is that the big picture plan? Is that the end game?
Well, the end game would be to revolutionize education, and however that looks like, if we're going to scrap it or not. What I'm trying to do is I'm proposing an alternative educational format.
Which is through your workshops.
Yes.
And the workshops, for example, if you could give us an idea, it's not just any sort of workshop.
Yes.
It's a 6-day workshop, and you're having CEOs join the workshops.
Founders, change makers. Imagine that as your professors. These are people who actually don't tell you theories. and assume that this is how it's done in the real world. But when you're out in the real world, it's totally different. People who can teach you more, people who have wisdom, and who has really gone through a lot of mistakes. They were able to stand up from their mistakes. They were able to make, their big idea happen in real life, and they're going to share to you exactly how they were able to do it.
I wanted to share some statistics here because you've got the World Economic Forum saying that 65% of children entering primary school will end up in jobs that don't exist
Exactly.
yet. Also, you've got more companies joining Google, Apple, and IBM, no longer requiring a degree.
They don't.
They just need some sort of certification or you to show that you've got a talent or skill
Exactly.
in that specific field.
Indispensable skills.
Okay, so how different will your courses be from what our universities offer these days?
Okay, so the current conventional educational system, I have high respects for it, to be honest, because it really helped us. But for me, it's already outdated. It's not broken. It's just outdated. It's like the same as having a mobile phone. The Nokia 5110 still works, right? But we're using now an iPhone or an Android phone because we need more power when it comes to computing and communications. So it needs to be updated. So for us, the question is again how we can reimagine it, right? So for me, what we can do is, I don't want people to be fed of what to learn. In a quick Google search, they can have access to the same amount of information as the President of the United States during the 1980s, which only means it's easy for you to find more about the subject in just, even a kid, a 5-year-old niece of mine can already go to Google and go to YouTube and check out, search, and go down the rabbit hole learning more about a certain topic. For me, what you wanted to do now to people is to turn on their intellectual curiosities. By intellectual curiosity, I define that as being curious about what you're naturally curious about. And then we groom now change makers who wants to see that what are the possibilities? How can we change things rather than accepting the way things are?
So do you see decades, some centuries old universities becoming obsolete?
I'm thinking that they will also join the revolution. They will also join the movement. They are going to also rethink, knowing that the old system doesn't work anymore.
For the workshop model, for example, how do you do quality control then?
Right. So,
is there science to the curriculum that you'll offer?
Yes. So one of the tenets, or one of how we execute this format really is, we want to go beyond the idea that it's feeding education. We want transformation to happen. And we curated a number of workshops, activities that help them shift the way they look and perceive, things, and make them more able and make them more inspired. So when you talk about quality, it's really about how did the person's life change after this. And I've been doing this for the past 2 years, not exactly NBU or Newbold University. I've been doing a lot of workshops, and they became like my first prototypes on how it should be done. And I wanted, and from that we had really great feedbacks, like my life changed. Those kind of comments, like I see it differently now.
And to institutionalize this sort of reform that you want, are you going to be partnering with CHED, for example, or DepEd, the government, or private companies who are looking to retrain, reskill, upskill their people?
We're looking in the future where we can do a lot of collaborations with these agencies, because what we need now is a proof of concept. What we need now is that through this format, we get to try it out, experiment, change the lives of people, and then once they see the effect of this, then they'll try to adapt, try to collaborate. It's
easier to convince them.
It is, because the job here is not to do it only my way. I want this to be, this interview that we're having right now, to be a start or an ignition of a lot of conversations, of people trying to reimagine. You know what? That's right. Actually, we have a problem with our educational system, and let's talk about it, and let's see what ways we can improve it.
Okay. And on that very optimistic note, thank you very much, Ralph, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mimi.
Good luck.
Awesome interview. Thank you. Thank you.